Hello, welcome to another video where today I'm going to look at the single arm row, a very popular exercise and a great exercise for building some strength into the upper back. And what I want to discuss is a couple of things, especially the grip. So you see Dylan here is doing a version of the dumbbell row with what we would classify as a pronated grip, so where he has his palms facing us. So it's usually the harder version, and most people are a little bit weaker with the pronated grip, and a lot of people prefer to do the neutral grip, which Dylan will show you in a second. But what I wanted to show you on this is there's a couple of things technique wise on this pronated grip. When he comes up, and I'll show you in a minute from a rear view here, there needs to be a gap between his back and his elbow, and that's very important for the function of the scapula. And the beauty of the pronated grip is it really doesn't allow people to excessively pull the elbow too high or get it in too close and jam up that scapula. That's why they feel a little bit weaker, but it's actually a much better choice of grip than the neutral grip, which Dylan will show us here. So neutral grip is where he's got the thumb sort of facing forward, so the dumbbell's here, where the pronated grip was like that. Alright, so on the neutral grip, it's still an okay exercise, but it's a lot easier to sort of make a few errors here, and you'll see them from this side on and from behind especially. You'll see where there'll be a minimal gap between his back, and see how there's no gap at all between the elbow and his back here, and I'll show you in the pronated grip in a second what it would look like. So that's one of the first mistakes we might see. And then we'll also, and Dylan's sort of moving himself into different positions here. Now I've shown you, here's the pronated grip. Can you see the difference in how much room he has between here and here? This is where the scapula sort of moving out away from the spine, giving it that much more freedom to move. And when we come into a side on, you'll notice that his elbow, it's really difficult to get it past his back here, so he doesn't excessively pull. So it's a much better technique for the shoulder. So if you're recovering from shoulder injury, the pronated grip is a much better choice. Neutral grip is fine if you're doing it well, but it's much easier to get mistakes with it. This is where we'll start to see a little bit of extra movement, sometimes being in a horrible position to begin with. So Dylan's just showing us a couple of the mistakes. So we might see people losing their posture, where you really need to ensure that you have that neutral curve through here. And that's where also you'll see where he was moving his leg closer or further away. It's always better to have the leg further away from the bench instead of right next to it. And then the other thing here is what I discussed a minute ago, is where pulling too high. See how that elbow can get right up above the body there? And what that does is, when you come too high, the front of the shoulder will move forward and out of the capsule as such. So you sort of start to stretch through the front there because you're pulling too far behind you. So it's always better to stop in line with the spine there. So Dylan goes back to a couple more of just the normal pronated. Can you see how that goes from that side on there? How he just doesn't come any higher. It's about as high as he can get. See that? The dumbbell sort of hits his chest and stops him from going any more. Alright, so it's a great exercise if you do it well. I would always prefer to do this pronated grip. I know you might feel like it's weaker, but trust me, you're getting a much better even workload between the smaller muscles like the rear deltoids, and in contrast to the bigger powerful muscles of rhomboids and middle traps. So they're sharing the workload evenly and keeping that shoulder inside basically the ball inside the socket. Can you sort of see? You can see it quite clearly here. That's a very healthy position for the shoulder, whereas if he was to come too high, then the shoulder would point downward. You see that? And also from that other part, we see the scapula getting jammed from being too close. So yeah, so there's a couple of the technique tips that we might look for with the dumbbell row, and the reason why I prefer a pronated grip, which is a question that I was asked a lot recently, and why I prefer that way. Alright, so I hope that video explains it better for you, and we'll see you on the next one.